This is the If More Let's Divide podcast.
Yo, Charlie, guys, what's poppin'? Welcome to the If More Let's Divide podcast. Another episode means another week. And Charlie, season 6 is moving smoothly and with amazing guests.
Yep.
Starting with Samini. Charlie, I enjoyed Samini's interview.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoyed it. Selassie's interview was dope.
Went back and listened to a couple.
Yeah, Charlie.
Let it play.
Yeah, and Charlie, as you know, the same song we have been singing from season 1. Please do tell somebody about the podcast, the If More Let's Divide podcast. Subscribe, follow, and Charlie. Very soon we have a bag of tricks for you guys. Fred, what's happening?
Charlie, brethren.
You chilling? Haven't you seen anything new on me? I was trying to see if you have
Dog tags.
Oh no, but I've been wearing dog tags. But yeah, this one has something for the If More Let's Divide. I did it in September.
I'm very observant unless you're talking about your iWatch.
Oh no. IMLD is nothing but a podcast.
Oh, but you do for your body.
I do too. I know the C one.
Oh, this be
No,
boring.
I do 4 because it comes in 2.
Wait,
right?
still one who touch
No,
me.
it go there. No, I forget. I'm sorry. Please, I'll give it to you.
All right, okay.
But
this is
I'm now wearing lenses.
you change them.
Yeah, Charlie.
So okay, I didn't see the dark part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm used to the frames.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go and convert them to
Yeah, Charlie, check it out. It's
really.
yeah.
Me have to wear glasses. So
It's
you
quite
won't be
thick.
as bad. So you be short sighted or
Look down, look below the frame. It's different from the top.
It be by whatever they call it.
Progressive. They say.
Like I can't talk bipolar. My bone, Jesus.
Yeah, it is-
Bifocal.
Yeah. Because like I couldn't see things from afar.
Okay.
And I couldn't see
Read.
some things from close. No, I can read when it's close, but you know something that happened.
Yeah,
in my
then
eye.
we have the same problem.
Yeah.
But I think your eyes are better than mine because mine.
Yeah.
Look
So now, but I'm not going to wear it like
all the time.
All the time.
When you're
you know.
reading or
It's been 4 days old and I'm already adjusting to it. Today, I went back and they are like, "Oh, Charlie, have I fallen?" I say, "No, I no fall."
So they expected me
Yeah.
the day I took mine. I bashed 3 times. I scratched 3 cars because everything looks so big.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then people are sitting next to me like, they see the car.
Yeah. So on Monday they told me that I shouldn't drive with it as I'm leaving the clinic. I'm like, I'm going to drive with it. I drove all the way. In the evening I drove, and the only thing is that when I'm walking, it feels like the ground is swallowing me up.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
The tiles got bigger.
Yeah,
So now I had to like step. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love the lenses. It's time for our guests, for this episode. What do you know about her?
I don't know a whole lot, but I know enough that she's been prominent since I've been on social media in my, I guess, if you want to call it a Twitterverse. And then when I moved back to Ghana, she was one of the first artists I went to see live and in person. She's always been, I feel like, she's been like a trailblazer. So
Yeah, I mean, I've known her for some years now, way over 10 years. You know, she's an artist. I can't put her in a box. She's a poet. She owns a brand that I love. We will talk about it on the podcast, even though I haven't copped any yet. And yeah, she's doing so many dope stuff that we will unravel in today's episode. Some might know her by her local name, Poetra Asantewa. Others to know her by, the name that I first heard. I'm like, wow, this is genius. So guys, help us welcome Poetra Asantewa.
Booyaka.
Amma, what's up? How do you want us to call you on this episode?
You can call me Asantewa. Or you
Asantewa.
can call me Poetra.
But which one do you prefer?
I think Poetra because everybody knows Poetra, so that works.
And how did you get that name?
Charlie.
I actually want the history behind
There's
that.
no glamorous history. There's no nice history. It was just a random name that I took up like maybe 15 years ago because I just woke up and I said, okay, I'm a poet. If I add R to it, it's like a feminine poet. So Poetra.
So like Cleopatra.
Yeah, something like that. But like it would show that it's a poet.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated it down the line because I thought it was extremely corny. But now I don't have a choice, so it's part of my identity. Yeah.
You thought it was corny after you came up?
After, like years after, I thought it was corny.
But I mean, you could have gone with Asantewa or
I
Asantewa.
know I should have gone with Asantewa
because I feel that one has some weight to
yeah,
to
I
it.
should have, but
But
at least
Asantewa
it's
is still
Poetra
there.
Asantewa, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you try changing your name at a point?
I didn't because
But I saw more of Asantewa.
so on page I go by my name. So on my publications I'm published as Asantewa
Asantewa.
Diaka, but on stage I'm Poetra Asantewa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I have noticed about you right now is your style. Did you intentionally try to match your manicure? It's manicure, right? With your shirt.
No, it was accidental.
You just intombs.
Yeah.
Intombs.
Yeah.
If you
accidental.
love fashion, Fred is your guy. With me,
I've noticed the shirt. It's Nana Danso.
No, it's not.
Oh,
It's not. This was a cheap buy. Sorry.
Doesn't it remind you of his art?
I do know what you mean. I
Yeah.
do see. I think his is a little bit more sophisticated. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But it's really dope. I thought it was. Okay. I thought it was here. I was like,
Yeah, thanks.
then your hair.
My hair,
For a while now, I've realized that you paint your hair green.
Yeah.
Why?
is this green?
It's green and blue.
It's
So-
like deep water blue.
Yeah, it's
Charlie.
both colors.
Fred, yeah, you there with the play no, then Charlie, hey,
No.
you there sometimes you dey disgrace me too much. Charlie, deep water blue. What is this?
No, it's actually accurate because the name of the color on the dye is aquamarine, which is deep water blue, so it's correct.
Charlie, me, I know green, I know red, I know yellow. The only side I'll go is navy blue. Yeah. Is there a meaning to it?
No, so 2 years ago I was tired of my hair and I was going to cut it, but then I said, if I'm going to cut it, I might as well dye it and see. And I had heard stories of dyeing ruins your hair, it breaks your hair. But then I went to do it and I liked it. And I haven't stopped dyeing it since then. So, yeah.
But it doesn't mean anything like the color.
Really, it doesn't mean anything.
So
I
that
just
means
saw...
so that means pink. You could have gone with pink.
Yeah, no.
Blue.
Too girly.
You could have gone with blue.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm still doing blue. And yeah, I think I may try gray at some point. Yeah, but yeah, not the...
Like gray or the human gray.
the human,
Like the human hair gray.
See
human
Fred
hair
again,
grey.
no, Charlie.
No. I feel say maybe he's talk the gray like.
What is human grey?
You know when you have gray hair,
Yeah.
it's actually
That
not
is-
the color gray, it's white.
Yeah, it's white.
Yeah.
So I was asking, is she gonna go actually gray like the color gray? Because
human,
this is
human hair gray.
Yeah, human hair gray.
Yeah.
So you mean off-white?
I mean like the natural. Don't want fuck with me, man. This guy.
What's role? Yeah, I want to say role. I want to use role here. What role do you think, or what role for you, does your hair play any role in your life? Because I feel that anyone who sees you from afar, the hair stands out, right? So that's why I'm asking.
I think it plays a role for other people. Like it's become sort of an identifier for me. And people see the hair and immediately like, yeah, Poetra is here in the last 2 years. But it isn't really for me. For me, it's just
you don't care,
styling.
like,
It's just the styling thing. Yeah.
Why were you gonna cut it?
Because I was tired. And I wanted to do low maintenance, just wake up and go. I think I still will cut my hair at some point, yeah.
Okay.
Again. I mean, hair will grow.
But
so.
this is not low maintenance, is it? I'm asking, curious.
It's not really low maintenance. It's still natural hair. then you have to do all the other stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Just yesterday, I can't remember where I was, but I was going down a flight of stairs, and I'm like, something just hit me. I want to go dreadlocks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, how? You make wild.
Yeah, it just
I
hit
think
me.
I like this stage of your style evolution, hair evolution. This one different. Dreads.
Yeah.
Like all the whole thing.
Yeah, the
or
whole
like-
thing. Yeah, the whole
Like
thing.
half? Like, it's
Yeah,
half and
like
Like
also.
maybe was he skinning the side and leaving the top
Okay.
to grow?
Yeah,
Or,
it just hit me. But my hair doesn't grow that quick, and it
but your
has.
hair is pretty long. You're just not seeing it now.
Yeah, because I've kept it for a year and a year.
You never know. Maybe it might work.
Yes, I'm afraid.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well.
So I was trying to listen to your music before I pulled up. Just trying to get, a bit into your where you currently are mentally. And I saw XY and I saw XX. Where's the inspiration coming from for your new work? Like, it's very curious how you do something for I don't want to say both genders, but it seemed like you do something for the boys, you do something for the girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my new work, my new album For All of Us, I think, so I have been performing professionally for, I think, maybe 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I started as a poet. That's what people know me as. But in the process, I've also kind of doubled a bit with music, etc. And I wanted to, I think I've grown into this artist who is quite confident in her multiplicity. And I wanted to show that side well.
Okay.
So I wanted to release a series of projects that will show the poetry, but also the music, with both strengths. So yeah, for the last 2 years, I've been releasing a project every year. And the whole point is to get to this identity where people now recognize me, both for the poetry and for the music.
Okay.
So last year, I released an EP titled Prelude to a Poem. And essentially what I'm trying to communicate is that poetry is the mother of all arts. And so I am redefining what a poem is, and that a poem encapsulates so much. So to do that, I started, yes, like I mentioned, Prelude to a Poem, and that song, that EP was a combination of music and poetry, and the album is a continuation of it. I also kind of structured it like a book, where if you take a book, there's a prelude, sometimes by the author, and then there's a dedication page. So For All of Us is a dedication page, where like maybe if you take a book that author has dedicated it to my cat or to my mother, and so for this dedication page, I wanted to dedicate it to all of us. So For All of Us, and so that was the direction I was going. I wanted to work on a body of art that was, benefiting both genders, both sides of the coin. Yeah.
Quite interesting.
So because I met you as a poet so many years ago. At what point did you decide that you would go the other route, like singing? I thought that your next move would be to write books.
I mean, I still am writing
Yeah.
books.
But now, like, yeah, even though you have a book or two out, three, three books out. I feel that doesn't happen every now and then. But with you singing, you have dropped, I think 2 or 3. Like your last one was a few months ago, two months ago, all
2
of
months ago.
yeah. Why did you decide to, add this side to you being a spoken word artist or a poet?
Yeah, 2 things. One, because it is a part of me. It is. My mother always says that she's surprised I'm doing poetry. She thought I would be a singer because from the beginning that was like my interest. It's something that I love doing. I love singing. I love composing. But 2, I love poetry, and poetry is the first art form that made a lot of space for me to make mistakes, to expose me to people, places, etc. And I believe in poetry as an art form, as a tool of communication, but I also believe in the commercial viability of poetry. And I am honest enough to accept that just the way in which poetry is practiced as spoken word in Ghana, it won't thrive. I think it has to be babied with other stuff. And I think that music already has a familiarity with the audience, and mixing it up will be the perfect way to trying to build an audience. So yeah.
Yes, suddenly we have glasses in our hands, wine from Barrow House. We thank you, Barrow House. This is Kumusha. It's from South Africa. Apparently, the person behind this is a black man from South Africa. Very soon or later, we'll hear more about Kumusha. Fred, and your cheers, Amma.
Cheers, Charlie. Cheers to Amma.
Yeah.
For showing up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Amma, currently, what are you working on before we delve into all your sides? What are you working on currently? How are you feeling? How is art?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
It's always a difficult question to answer because I'm working on a couple of things.
You actually double in several things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of art, I am in the process of struggling and birthing to write my novel. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Is it going to be your first?
My novel? Well, technically, yes. And it's going to be my first, yeah.
Do you guys get grants for that?
No.
So you're doing this on your own, no grants?
No.
But apparently there are grants for writers like you.
I mean, there are grants for time away to write. For instance, there are opportunities for residencies, etc. But there aren't grants to write your book. That's your work. So yeah, you have to make it work.
Would you write it then later go and look for somebody to?
So I have an agent.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I have an agent. So when the book is finished, she sells it. So yeah, once I have a complete book, that's when the money comes in. But the process of writing it is all me.
Do writers make money from books? Because every book I see, you turn the back and it's a bestseller. Reviews from New York Times.
I don't even know what that means anymore.
Yeah, reviews from New York Times and,
Well, technically, I think it's a different metric. But if it says New Yorker bestseller, I think, if I remember correctly, if it says bestseller, it means it sold 750 copies in the first week. It was
750?
That's a lot too.
750
for books.
In the week it was released, not its lifetime. In the week it was released, and this is a very Western metric.
Yeah.
But the way books work in the publishing world is once you whether it's via an agent or direct. Yeah. You sell the book to the publisher.
Yeah.
Some people are able to get 7-figure deals for their book. Some people it's 6, some people it's 5. So depending on what you're able to negotiate, there is a sum that a writer gets that they can have. Yeah.
Do you think sorry, Fred? Do you think Ghanaians love to read? I
think that any human being can like to read.
Okay.
I think reading is a culture, the same way that learning how to speak English is a culture, or learning how to speak any other language. And it's a culture that has to be taught and implemented. And if we keep saying Ghanaians don't like reading, I'm tired of hearing that.
Okay.
You aren't putting any measures in place to ensure that happens. You don't expect it to automatically happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Ghanaians...
Okay, so... I asked you that because of this question. If 750 in the first week is a bestseller in the world, when we bring it to Ghana, how many books do you think you should sell in a week for it to become a bestseller?
Oh, we can't use that metric in Ghana at all.
No. I'm not saying 750. Like you, it could be 25 if you our own terms.
I think in Ghana, I'm not even going to do the weekly thing. Perhaps in a year, if you're able to sell 1,000 copies, that is a bestseller. That is a bestseller.
Wow.
Because one, we don't have the same processes for selling books. We don't have bookstores in every district, in every city. We don't even have publishers who are publishing different genres of books. We don't have the marketing. We don't have the sales. We don't have the promotion tactics. We don't have the machinery to promote and publish books like the West does. So we can use the same metric. Yeah.
Who isn't doing their work?
Yeah, that's a big question. I guess the whole country isn't doing their work, because the work of having a good book culture, it's the work of many people. The government, definitely, I would put it on the government, because they own the responsibility. The same way that the government has a prerogative to have our educational system, like a curriculum in place, is the same way that we should have a machinery for ensuring that a book, people are even well trained to write good books in the first place. So I think I would start from the government. But also, there are different cultures, like even in the home, we have a responsibility to have like a reading interest. I really think reading is as basic as writing. You know, the habit of reading is as basic as the habit of writing, and it should be in every home.
Wow, Fred. I know you used to read a whole lot. You don't read nowadays. Why?
I prefer to listen to audiobooks.
That's reading.
I have never tried.
It's still reading.
You haven't?
Yeah.
But I think Mutombo's questions are now bringing a lot to mind. So I think I want to take the question he asked again because of some of the things that you've said about, do Ghanaians like actually reading? And then your response was anybody could. And now you further explain that you think we don't have the machinery, we don't have the system, we don't have the culture necessarily in place, and you lay it at the feet of the government, that they could be the initiator of such a culture. And it's a chicken and egg thing for me now. Is it because we think there's no market for it, and that's why the reading culture hasn't grown? Or is it because we're waiting for somebody to engineer the culture? What do you think?
I think it's both. I think we've definitely degraded. So when I was young, my father, every time like we close from school, there's like a reading hour, and he would go and deposit us at the library, and then he would come back for us after like an hour or two. That was just something I knew. Or when I'm at home, my parents designed reading to be like a reward. And so I was very excited to read. So yes, the government has a part to play in having libraries or community centers, etc. But in the home as well, parents, guardians, we also have a responsibility to have that interest for that. So I think, yes, we are waiting for people to engineer it. And by we, I mean everybody. We are waiting for the government to engineer it. But there's also community leaders, there are ordinary artists who have a part to play. If we keep complaining about the same thing, another generation will come and meet the same problem, and it goes on and on and on. Somebody has to start something. And then once they start it, we all have to rally around and make it work.
I mean, I love that. I'm thinking also that libraries used to be a common thing because it was generally accepted that you should have a library. You had that in school. And then now, my question is it that because of the evolution of technology, we don't see it necessarily as a viable form of information source? Because when like you, when I was coming up, you'll be required to go to the library to do some research if you wanted to find out information. Like before Wikipedia, there was encyclopedia. A lot of kids may not even know that Wikipedia is just some evolution of the word encyclopedia or whatever. They're just going on their phone, everything is accessible. And so the idea of physical reading from a book is not sold as entertaining enough. So from your vantage point, what do you think can overcome that like cultural notion that is kind of prevalent now?
I think that one, it's not entirely a technological like side effect. I think our libraries have degraded. Like there was a period where like all of our libraries are no longer working, they are deteriorating, there aren't enough books. I mean, the past government, one of their achievements was that they have institutionalized more libraries. But like if you go into the libraries, the books and questions that are available was another thing to talk about. You can't then, like there haven't been libraries for 5 years, and then you bring back libraries and you expect the culture to be the same. You have to put the same work into trying to encourage people or make people want to be in the same spaces. So I think one, the physical spaces deteriorated, and when they were coming back, we didn't do the work of making them as enticing as the digital format. But I think physical books are something that will never go out of style. There was a time where we thought it would. Like, magazines are no longer a thing like they used to be a decade ago, but books are still being created all over the world. It will, no matter how advanced the audiobook, all the other inventions get, physical books will never go out of style. So that's a thing. I do think that we need more of our stories. And we are getting into a space where people are reading, like at least with my proximity with the literature world, people are reading. They just aren't reading. There isn't accessibility to enough Ghanaian stories, enough African stories. Nigerian writers are writing amazing books. Some Ghanaian writers are writing amazing books, but the space between getting the book is very, very far apart.
Yeah, that's part. I love that you brought that up, because my concern was that is it also a consequence of not enough writers like yourself telling stories that are close to the people who should be consuming? Because who wants to go and sit in the library and read about Alexander the Great again? Like, the story has been regurgitated over centuries. Now it's like, okay, I want to be self-aware. So is that enough? Is there enough material? Are people, but is that also then, are we not getting paid enough? So he's not interested enough to be a writer? Like, if you could do something about it, what would you do?
Yeah, so this is I don't want the whole interview to be taken over by this topic, so I'm going to try but again, because I have proximity to the literature world, or even arts, I always say this: Ghana doesn't lack talent. You can go anywhere, but like, that's one thing I will fight you on. Like, we have enough writers who are doing the work, who have the material.
Okay.
But the thing about art is that the creation process is entirely different. When the creation process is done, it then becomes a product. And how that product meets the audience, that is a business. That's a business model. So we have the talent. I very much believe that we have the talent. We don't have the process of getting the product, which is the finalized talent, into the hands of the consumer. There aren't enough publishers in Ghana. Like, I was privileged enough to get an American agent. I was privileged to get an agent who was able to give me a deal with an American publisher. It's how many Ghanaians are going to get that opportunity? Very few. We have to create our own homegrown resources that will cater to Ghanaians here. Okay. But it's difficult. It's not easy. Like, I am trying to. So one of the things that one of my companies, Tampered Press, is that we just announced a fiction manuscript prize, and essentially, we are getting people to the highest. The winner gets a deal, just like I got a deal, gets an advanced money, and they get their books published in Ghana and Nigeria. But we need more things, because of course there are more writers. This benefits only one writer. We need more writers. Like, publishers are publishing maybe 10 books a year, and we don't have enough publishers here to even be publishing 10 people a year. So I think there's talent. We can have another conversation about if the talent is writing, if they're documenting our present times, if they're preserving our history, what kind, are they competing? Like, we can have a different conversation about that, but I truly believe that we have the talent. We just don't have the process of moving the talent to the consumer.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this because of you mentioning, the government. Is it wise for an artist to be very political?
Everything is political. I know what you mean. I'm sure you mean politics.
Yeah.
But I think our existence is political because everything affects you, whether you like it or not. I guess everybody, as an artist, you have the luxury of deciding your proximity to the reality of politics in your country. But I will advise that you should be political because it affects your life. It affects your life as a human being, and it affects your life as an artist even more for somebody who doesn't have resources as an artist in Ghana.
What has life been for you in the last few years? Let's say last 5 years. How has life been for you, taking the economy into,
In terms of political?
living.
Yeah, I mean, it's show me Pepe. Yeah, I think you can't be Ghanaian and not Yeah, I would say it's made me more self-aware. It's made me more empathetic. It's made me more comfy as well. I think I'm
What
not...
is Kampe?
it's made me more hard.
Hey, you ain't just like Kampe.
I'm not Ghanaian. No. You know what Kampe is?
So it's Kampe.
Campaign? Do you mean campaign? Yeah. You made mention of another brand that you own, and you are currently, you have something for people to win,
Is it tempered press or tamped?
Yeah.
Tamped.
Tamped. You own Tamped Press. You own Yobbings. Back in the day, Atade. Is it Atade? Alikoto Clothing. What happened to that?
Yeah, I shelved it. Yeah, but
why?
So that was actually my first
Yes,
business.
I do remember. Yeah.
That's my first business. But I was having it. So yeah, it's a clothing business, and I was sewing a lot. But I was struggling, I guess, with the business side, and also I used to get a lot of dizzy spells, and my mother was just like, "You have to shelve this."
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of shelved it, but I think it will come back before I die. I don't know when, but definitely before I will resurrect it.
It's been like 10 years plus.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You are so driven, if that's the right word. Where did you get that from?
Good question. I would say that hardship drives me.
Hardship.
Yeah.
So are you trying to say right now, when you get $1 million, you are done?
No.
You are going to retire?
No. Okay, that's not fair. I think.
Hardship.
I think that's definitely a driver, like a motivation. But I think how I've also been nurtured. I think my upbringing has really influenced the things that I go for. And both parents are very driven. Like, my parents are very project-oriented, and they're always working on something. My mother always has, like, something she's working on. My dad has a project he's been working on for over 30 years. So I think I have... Our existence is very mimetic. A part of the way that I am is because I have seen it being done when I was growing up, and so it's become my identity as well.
Yeah. Can you mention everything that you are behind, so we enter one by one?
Okay, so Black Girls Glow,
Charles.
Tamped Press,
Charles.
Yobbings,
Charles.
Makala Queens.
I don't know about that.
Ayalulu, or we can just say Gamamli, the font.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
For now, that's what I can mention.
Fred, pick one and...
Wow. So, driven by hardship. You sound, not to be stereotypical, but you don't sound like you're born out of hardship in your diction, in your presentation.
Hey, how do hard people sound like?
You come off as somebody who is has exposure, is cultured, and normally you don't associate that with hardship necessarily in our environment. But I'm not saying that's not possible or it's not true. So the reason why I said that is I want to know, from all of the ventures that you're engaged in.
Shouts to Barrow House, Charlie. I'm pouring myself another glass.
Why have you chosen to do any one of those things, and are any of them particularly like personal to you, as opposed to it being a business opportunity where I heard about this is great, I can delve into it, but this is for personal reasons? Yeah.
Actually, all of the things I mentioned, only one is business.
Okay.
Is a business oriented or is a profit making oriented. All the others,
which
which is
one?
Yobbings.
Yobbings, okay.
Yeah, all the others aren't profit oriented.
Okay. What's Yobbings about?
Yobbings is a design company, is a greeting card.
Okay.
Company,
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
even with that, I don't think it's purely business because
It's not purely
you
business, but
write,
it's
you are creative,
yeah.
and those cards are very, very creative.
Really?
Very, very
I've never
creative.
seen
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Do you
I'm
have?
sure you have.
Okay.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure. But I would like to see one if you have one
Yeah.
with you somewhere, or I'd like to look it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Let's take it from this angle with the multiplicity of the
Yeah.
work that you
No,
do.
but I would like to answer that question.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so I, at the core of my being, I very much care about community.
Mm.
I think that community has become a buzzword in our circles, and
Of course.
and it's just an image of togetherness of some sort. But we are not designed to be individualistic. And as an artist who came into the art space, and it wasn't easy to be an artist, I have a desire to leave the space better than I met it. I have a desire to create an environment which I would have benefited from if it was like that 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Understood.
So almost everything I do in the last decade, and that I am pretty sure I'll continue to do, is driven by that desire. That it's driven by the need to create, build, be part of, and contribute to a better community that is serving one artist well, because art is central to me, but also central to the people. You know, at the core of it, just people as they are, and I think that's a huge motivator for.
Is that why you think life is inevitably political?
Yeah.
Okay. So then how do you tie your sense of community building into the political sphere that we have here? Like, it's almost like a two-dimensional existence where it's either one party or the other, right? And the way that we've observed the past couple of cycles, you would see as a wild swing in one direction and then another, and it's almost like the people who were quote unquote dethroned were like enemies of the people, essentially. It's like they were doing the most heinous things, but which is not helpful to the kind of community that you want to build. Our political existence and the world that you want to see, how do you converge the two? How do you make it work?
Yeah, so the way I converge the two is to think of life as three-dimensional, and to think that at the end of the day, yes, maybe there will be two-dimensional perspectives or you know, universes. There may be A and B, but at the end of the day, both A and B have to exist, though. So there has to be a third ground where we are trying to live in peace and harmony. So I approach it from, regardless of where you are, how can you make, one, your existence better for yourself in a way that it doesn't harm another person? And how can you make it better for your neighbor, not just yourself?
Okay.
So I think that really drives me, and I try to do that by, one, individually being excellent with what I do, anything that I do, and to approach things as like, I was just reminded of this quote where it says, slack work. If you're doing work and you're just slacking with it, if you're doing shoddy work, it's equated to vandalism. You might as well be you know, ruining things, because doing it anyhow is vandalism. But if you're doing something with generosity and excellence, that is the definition of love. And I want to approach all of my work that way, whether it's for individual purposes or it's for public or it's for community purposes. And I think that's how everybody should approach.
Okay. It might sound a bit controversial to even ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's something that's been mulling in my head for a while. Do you think that we have the predisposition for that excellence that you describe right now? As in, is it a Western idea, right? Is it a Western idea to strive for excellence, do this at the highest peak, like craftsmanship or artistry, all of that, all of those things that we seem to hack into to reach the pinnacle of our abilities? Is it a Western concept, or is it something that we are naturally predisposed to? The reason why I'm asking is that we've brought up the subject of, reading as an issue because either the writers are not being produced enough and there's not enough libraries, enough books. But is it our nature? Like, do we just want to go out and play alukuto or have sex as a basic form of entertainment? Because majority of the people I know engage in these basic things, and there doesn't seem to be, at least I haven't recognized, a consistent desire to make a world in which the kind of excellence you're striving for is prevalent. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a Westing idea. I think it's a human predisposition to ease. Like our resting place is basic.
Okay.
Our resting place is average, mediocrity. And we have to do the work to be excellent. Like I'm always saying, like there's this saying that, like maybe for instance, if you're being bad, like somebody say my evil is my second skin, but I'm like, no, that's actually your original skin. That's your first. That's where you operate from, and you have to make the effort to not be basic. So I think it's not even Westing. I really think it's the human condition.
Okay.
Is that we are predisposed to be very slack, and we have to put the work in. Discipline is not cheap. Attaining like any kind of high results is not cheap, and that takes extra work, whether you're white or brown or black. Yeah.
Cool. The wine is hitting. Crazy. It's hitting.
Sure it's hit.
Chai, chai. This wine. Chai, there's this thing where they
Swirl. Yeah, that's the word,
I don't know
It's very
what
bougie.
that makes to the wine, but I've been doing that, for a few minutes now.
The idiot part of me will say entronkwa, but the sophisticated people would say it makes a difference.
Yeah,
So.
but Charlie, wine is something that I've been recently. I have gravitated to drinking wine recently from the club peers.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought I was gaining weight at a point, so I'm like, So I drink wine at night and sleep. Yeah,
Interesting.
even I don't have issues with sleeping.
Oh.
But it gives me some
chill.
warmth.
Yeah.
You said that everything you do, you ensure that it's excellent.
I try to.
You try to. How do you deal with failures and disappointments and blocks?
Yeah, failure and disappointment. I guess like everybody else, I grieve my failures. I accept it. I grieve my failures. I beat myself up, but I don't stay there. I get like I was telling, a lot of writers have been asking me about how did you get published. I'm like, I spent 3 years receiving rejections. And it's very easy to say it now, but when I was going through it, it wasn't easy. I remember sitting in a train and receiving a rejection and just crying in the train and being angry at myself for crying in the train. And it's just going through the feeling, even if you don't like it. So I go through it. I don't have I can hide from my failures. And it's the same for my blocks. If sometimes I accept that a block has come, but I try not to stay there. I try to look at practices that will try to get me out of it.
Yeah. Dope. Chai, there are so many pockets that I want to enter with you because of your sides that you have. Which one should I pick? Black Girls Glow.
Okay.
Yeah. Black Girls Glow. Like, why? Like, so my thing is Black Girls Glow. It's a girl thing.
Yes, and not completely, but it's a girl thing, yeah.
Why?
I mean, I think saying it's a girl thing it's a little bit boxed.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say Black Girls Glow is one of the things I'm extremely proud of. And one of the communities I am modeling that I hope I can see more versions of it in our ecosystem. But in 2016, I had the opportunity to be part of a residency in America with an organization called Found Sound, but the residency is called One Beat.
Oh yeah, one beat. Yeah.
And it was a 1-month residency, and it was a transformational period for me. It was the first time I got time to be just an artist for like a chunk of time. Like I didn't have to go to work, close, come back, right. Like it was the first time. And it was the first time I was in a space with other artists, creating, collaborating, having conversations, performing. It was just a very transformational time for me. But beyond that, I also found out that like it had been founded by like four or three artists who had been practicing art for a while, came together and said, we need to create a space where we can do this. And they pitched it to the government, and it was accepted. And not only were they creating space for artists, but they have this, agenda where they're like, artists have to create the world they want to see in. So yes, you've come to this place you're enjoying. If you go back home, what are you also going to create so that your fellow artists can have the same opportunity? And that's it. Like I came home thinking this was so transformational for me that I feel like every artist in Ghana needs that opportunity as well. So yeah, that's kind of how Black Girls Blow started. I decided to make it women because at that time, it was very hard to see. One of the things that motivated me was like, you see one song by EL featuring 7 male artists, and he will find the 7 male artists. But when they say Ifya and Miss V, oh, she's coming for the throne, it's always like competitive, like the women were parred with each other, but for the men, it was very natural. And it's not like a thing of any fight, or it was just that there haven't been opportunities for this collaboration to exist. And so that's why I started as a women's only movement of sorts to try and get more women to collaborate. But yeah, Black Girls Blow has evolved beyond that. And we have several programs. Of course, So we have a program called You Are Cared For. And You Are Cared For is we are using art as a way to solve sexual health, as sexual health advocacy. Sexual health is not treated as public health in Ghana. You have to figure it out on your own. But the reality is that it affects a lot of people. Ghana is actually one of the West African countries where teenage pregnancy has been increasing over 100% for the last 4-5 years. And nothing is being done about it. I'm trying to draw a line between how can art solve an issue in our community and how can it also benefit artists. So we're creating material for teaching sexual health education. One, it's something that will be used by the masses, but also the creation process involves the artist and they get paid for it. So yeah, You Are Cared For, it's both men and women who are part of the process.
What's your take on parents and their kids? Like, because you are doing some
sex
work
education
around that. Yeah.
I mean, so like I mentioned before, most of our behavior is mimetic. And our parents weren't taught by their parents about sex.
You learn something new every day.
Our parents weren't taught about sex by their parents, so they don't know how to teach. Different governments have tried, and I use try very loosely, to introduce some kind of sex education. And there's always been heavy resistance from parents and religious groups, etc. Because the minute they hear sex education, they think sex. But sex education encompasses so much. Yeah. It's about boundaries. It's about consent. It's about just knowing your body at all. Yeah. Like one of the things, when we went into the classrooms, so many of the kids did not know the name of their private parts. Like some people were calling it manhole. Some people they don't know the names. And it may seem like a joke.
What?
But it fosters abuse, right? Because then somebody can touch a child inappropriately, and because she hasn't been taught about identity, she hasn't been taught about the importance of privacy, she hasn't been taught about boundaries, she is slow to report until something happens. So yeah, parents are not comfortable. It's a cultural thing. So essentially what we are trying to do is to try and bring some fun and some lightheartedness and some color into teaching it, so that it's not all seriousness, is sex. And so when we go to schools, actually, the first thing we do is we introduce the material to the teachers, and sometimes they have PTA, so we introduce it to the teachers and the parents, so they get the material even before it gets the children. And in certain schools where the response has been even greater, once the child has it in the class, when they go home, the parents has the material as well. So they learn it together.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting.
That's solid work.
Yeah, I love the work that you're doing, but I think you're probably one out of, like, you're basically a non-existent idea. You're such a pioneer or a loner in the field that you're in the sense of what I know. I'm just speaking from my limitation and understanding of the community that we're in or culture that we're in, because I wanted you to expand on this, because I'm going to touch on it, about this resistance to sex education. I believe that a part of that resistance comes from our own lack of interest in educating ourselves. So the material that's being introduced into the space usually is Western material or Western authored and or Western policy-based education. And we are still somewhat of a traditional, society where you have sort of like, the bill that was going around to try and resist some of the ideas that we feel like is, not all of us feel that way, but we like to say that it's foreign to our culture. And I'm saying this long-winded thing just to ask you that I'm still stuck on this idea that, are we interested in our own affairs? Are we interested in do we love us? Because it's not new. Child abuse, young girl abuse, when I was growing up, 3 out of 4 of my women or female friends rather, I would know had been through abuse just by how they would relate, how they would, express. And this has been going on for centuries, or let's say decades, or whatever, generations. But there's still a lack of desire to deal with it head on. And my question to you is it inherently apathy? Is it we don't care about ourselves enough? We don't love ourselves enough? We lack the desire to... Because somebody in the West at some point would have been in an evolutionary stage where they didn't care, but they realized it's a problem. So they started writing about it. They started teaching about it. They started making movies about it. They started making plays about it. Where is our, upheaval in our society about these, crimes or these unbelievable things that are happening to us? Where is it?
Yeah, so to be honest, right, I am not that concerned about the origin or the source of, I think it's our norm. I think it's our norm. A lot of things are our norm. Change takes work. And I don't want to, be caught up in the whole idea of pioneering something. Because I think there are people who have been doing the work. One of the things that we lack as a country, specifically from the arts or different other things, is that there's such a lack of continuity. We are not able to continue ideas that are started. And so every time it feels like we are reinventing the wheel, because there are people who have tried to take this up at some point. Right? I think so many things, it's not even necessarily Westing, right? I don't want to be stuck on that because it makes it very black and white. Even health, right? The origins of health were Westing. The origins of medicine, and for the longest time, the female body was treated using, for centuries, the female body was treated using the anatomy of the male. It took centuries before that was changed. You would think that, that would not be rocket science, but it didn't click. It didn't seem, like if we have one anatomy, yeah, we can use it. And so many other things have been treated as norm. It takes intentionality, it takes consistency, it takes care to change something. And I think that's what's lacking here. I really think it's our norm. It's not that there's a lack of upheaval. We are so used to it. It has to take some groups of people to say, yes, just because we are used to it doesn't mean it has to remain the same. We need to make an attempt to change it. And I think that's what we are lacking as a people in general. We don't have a lot of people wanting to make the shift, or we don't have a lot of people who have the capacity to withstand all the troubles that comes with trying to change. Because some people do try and they get tired.
Yobbings. Yobbings, I think, was genius. Did you shift focus from Yobbings to other sites? Because now I see more of Black Girls Glow.
Yeah.
How
I think-
difficult is it multitasking? Like, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I've shifted focus, but that's only because I have the privilege of having a team for Yobbins.
no.
So if you are following me, you see more of Black Girls Club because now I'm building that. Yeah, Yobbins has a team now. I think Yobbins is in a good place than it's ever been. The thing about if something is doing well, you hear little about it. I think. But yeah, Yobbins.
Tell
I've
us,
shifted
tell
focus
us
only
about
because-
Yobbins, the concepts, like the story behind Yobbins.
So growing up, I loved Hallmark.
Same.
I loved the cards. I loved the stories behind it. But you know, it was very white, which is okay for a white audience. And you go to these gift shops and you see these cards all over there. And I thought it would be so cool if we had our own cards, our own language. And so it's always been something I had been like drawn to. But of course, I thought, do you think you can compete with Hallmark? I think like it took, I struggled with myself so much before starting Yobbins because, again, my Hallmark was Hallmark. So it just felt like, what makes you think
Bars.
you can compete
Bars, my nigga.
with Hallmark? But I got over my anxiety and decided just start. And Yobbins is one of the things that I created that I'm glad I created in the time I did, because social media is what made Yobbins successful. Like entirely, I didn't have any brick and mortar. I used the whole social media establishment to kind of push that business. I borrowed the lingo, the pidgin, the culture, and that's what feeds into Yobbins. It's constantly evolving because it's taking the language that we are speaking in the current affairs.
So let me paint a
etc.
typical picture for Fred, since you haven't seen any Yobbins card. Your doggy go jump on the card. And it's something
I
that
need
we say,
that.
hey, I eat that girl in doggy the jump.
Yeah.
You
When I
know-
don't do some right now, forget how to have sex.
Charlie, they lie, yo.
Charlie, I
They
swear,
lie.
man.
So
I forget.
how do you move from finding a dope copy for a card to actually producing a card that would have the same standard as a Hallmark?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say like a higher standard because Hallmark is more standardized,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
mine is more narrowed into I want to target the Ghanaian.
Yeah.
So yeah, it always starts with the copy. I'm always thinking what, and I remember like the first 4 or 5 cards that we used. So I remember very well. I had initially wanted it to release it during Valentine's Day, but I missed the window. We actually launched Yobbins in June. But still, I'm like, love is love. Affections are affections. It happens at
Yeah.
any time. I don't need February to make it work. And at that time, I'm like, okay, you see a Hallmark card. It says, I love you very much. It's cute. But like, you know somebody who did Ghana, like if the person says, me feel fucking, you feel it more than you feel, I love you very much. And so like those were the things that I was using it. So the copy is actually what starts it for me. I think about the copy. And sometimes the copy may be ordinary. Sometimes the copy could be, I love you this big, which is English. It's not, but then I have to then think about what design can I use that will seem very Ghanaian. And then I have to think about what illustration, what caricature, etc. So yeah, that's kind of how the process goes.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. I mean, Fred, you might need a card or two for your
I definitely want to.
for your chickas.
I don't have anything.
For your chickas.
I'm in the wilderness right
Yeah.
now, but it's all good.
So Fred, I'm saying I said Fred. Amma, you were introduced to me as a poet, right? As a poet. And you have gone through shows, right? And you are still going through shows. What are some of the last few shows that you have gone?
What are some of my last few shows? I think my
I
last...
saw a video on your page. You were reading something. Was it at the University of Ghana or something?
Oh yeah, but that wasn't a show.
That wasn't a show.
No, that wasn't a
What
show.
was it?
So I was invited to be the speaker for their graduation.
Okay.
ceremony for
How did
K-pop.
that
It
go?
was really, really cool. Yeah, they gave me like an escort, which was really cool.
When you say an
Like a
escort,
police escort, like kind of.
me, I thought an escort because
Yeah.
Fred sometimes takes an escort on his trips.
I don't mind them actually. I haven't been bold enough to take
Yeah.
one on, but after the medical checks, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was one of the few times that I saw you read.
Yeah.
Why?
No, because it
Short
wasn't
notice?
a poem.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't
okay,
a poem.
okay,
It was
okay,
an
okay.
address, like a commencement speech of sort. I was supposed to speak to the graduates.
How did you feel?
I felt like, I think I didn't realize the gravity of it until I was there. Because when they extended the invitation to me, I was like, I'm happy to accept it. I'm happy to do this. So of course I went through the motions of writing about it. But then when I got there is when I realized, oh, this is a big deal.
Were you shaking?
Maybe a little. But yeah, especially like
Do you
when
still
I
get stage fright?
I wouldn't call it stage fright, but I still
Pensive?
get
You get pensive.
nervous.
You get nervous.
A little bit. And there's something that One Love told me about nervousness that I feel like it makes me look at it from a different, where he says, you're only nervous because you care about your art. And that really makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Like when I feel nervous, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I just have to.
Yeah.
So maybe just the few seconds before I start, but like the minute I start, it kind of dissipates. But yeah, it
And
was.
it's,
it was
what
great.
other shows have you?
I think maybe one of my last memorable shows was actually an European tour that I did a couple of months back. And yeah, I really enjoyed being able to take it to different cities, like moving through different cities with poetry. Like I'm just always so enamored by the craft itself when it's taking me to different cities. And I really, really enjoyed that.
Dope.
Yeah.
Muchama just asked about your most recent shows, and you said one of the most memorable ones is the European tour. And it's something that I've been curious about. It feels to me as though a lot of the arts here are supported by the bourgeoisie, quote unquote, or the
certain
elites.
demographic.
A certain demographic. Maybe that's the more appropriate way to put it. And for an artist like yourself who's so passionate and has a lot to say, does it ever like dawn on you that the message that you're trying to convey, does it matter to you who's receiving it, if it's being received by the right like demographic, the right group of people, and how does it, just performing in that space, what's your perception on it?
I mean, yeah, so a lot of I would say almost like 90% of the arts, especially in the sound industry, is supported by foreign cultural agencies, which means we are performing in their spaces, and sometimes they are funding some of it, etc. And I think it's a larger issue of it's an effect of colonialism because we opened our gates for them to be part of us. But also, like, our governments aren't supporting us. We don't have spaces, especially with the sound. Like, now the visual art has more spaces, and that's because, like, one painting can sell for $300,000. One poem cannot sell for that amount. So, of course, we are disadvantaged in the sound department. So the visual arts are building their own spaces. We are struggling with the sound. So we don't have our own spaces. We have to, it's either you're performing at a restaurant or you're performing in a foreign cultural agency. So we just don't have the spaces, but art must thrive anyway. But of course, it affects the work because you are talking about yourself and about your people. So the people you want to hear the work are your people as well. At the same time, you have to eat. So how do you balance that out between who is supporting the work and who are you performing for, or who is your work targeted at? And I think really it's a hard question to ask and a hard question to answer and a long question to answer. But we need to build our own spaces. How that's going to happen is a longer conversation, but the solution is we need to create our own spaces.
Okay.
Not to eliminate completely the foreign cultural agencies, because I think that they are doing great work to some measure, but to the point where we are not dependent on them, that they are like partners, but not, dictating our work for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your personality. You're sitting here, you seem you are very well put together. You speak well, you have very succinct but clear thoughts about direction of where you want to go, what you want to do, how you're going about it. And do you feel like, because I've heard you use a few words I found intriguing when you said can't pay, and when you said some other, you broke into the local, like,
OG.
yeah, like hustle this, and I'm like, okay, do you feel like you present in a way that people take you only one way, like take you seriously, or feel like they have to come with the intellectual, where some days you just want to be like, Charlie, your doggy go jump, jovial, not that what but that kind of playful, like, so because so far the questions haven't come, Charlie, Poetra, what's going on in your life? What's your love life like? What do you look for in do you feel like people always approach you on that intellectual level, academic, and you like, I want to breathe, like, come on, I'm a regular human being, I can talk about anything. Give me a break. Do you ever feel like your presentation is keeping a conversation boxed in to a particular lane?
I mean, I would say that if it's a first time or a one-time interaction, it does, like, people approach me with a level of seriousness, not necessarily academic or intellectual,
Right.
but
Seriousness. Yeah, that's the word more I wanted to use.
But this is the same way I talk with my friends, and it's very vast. It's from very little things like memes or wedgies or food. It's vast, because the reality is I'm a vast human being. I'm not one-dimensional. And this is the same way that I talk. So like, if further interactions, like all the people in my life, sometimes we even really talk about serious things. So I would say for a one-time interaction, or for like if you saw me on a podcast, like that's how you've seen me. Yes, people come with me with that level of seriousness.
Okay.
But like repeated interactions,
You're chill, you're
Yeah.
laid back. Mutombo. You're a poet yourself.
I try.
You've been doing this. I actually found it, the first time I discovered that you were doing poetry, I thought it was so funny.
What did you think?
I just was like, what the fuck is he
This
doing?
Yawa guy.
No, not Yawa guy.
No, I know. Yeah.
But I thought, what is he doing? Why is he doing spoken word? But I've always thought,
What's wrong with him?
I thought poetry is personally, I loved poetry. I used to write when I was much younger.
Yeah.
Bus Boys and Poets in the States is a
Charlie.
place that I love.
I've been there.
So I always used to wonder, I'm like, because you came off when we were younger as street boy. Like, I've put 2 sticks in a tire and I'm running down the street, kind of, I'll fuck you over.
Still.
I'll fuck you up. And then I'm like, why is he interested in poetry? And now I've gotten used to the multifaceted nature of yourself. So the question I have for you is, I know poetry.
But why can't poetry be that?
It could be. Maybe his life was poetry. See, the poets are here.
Bars,
But
bars.
you've known Poetra for a while. I think with all humility, if you guys would accept, I think you two are the most distinct poets in our generation, representing both genders, right?
Yeah.
And so what is your relationship to, in terms of how you perceive her work and art, but also if you've ever thought about it, both of your places in the genre that you both practice in?
I mean, so back in the day, it's I haven't heard that in a while, but back in the day, like 2010s and thereabouts, anytime someone came up to me, they would mention Poetra and myself, because like it was just a few. When did I meet you? 2008.
10 maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, 2010, 2009. Yeah, and.
Right now, the one is making zizzles.
I go. Don't confuse me. Yeah,
Wow. I love it.
But like for me, right? I sidetracked a little bit, and Fred, this thing I haven't told anyone, well, my friends do know it. Like I just have 2 friends, and they know it. Why I started spoken word poetry is to fight my speech disability. Simple, plain, period. Like you actually remember me at Martin the Porris.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak to you like this.
Yeah.
Right? And my mom tried everything. And I remember one time we went to some house at Pig Farm, like I was so young, Pig Farm or somewhere. And the person said he should just talk. Because like with this one there, because I was born with it, my father apparently was worse.
Oh, okay.
Right? So how would I fight this? I'm like, should I rap? Rap is so easy. If you stammer, I've never seen anyone stammer sing or stammer rap. Right? So I'm like, I'm going to speak. And then I was like, let me do poems. So first it was like poems, right? So why I started this was because I had to fight something. And to be honest, it's helped. What was your next question? I can't remember.
So my question was, how do you see both of your places in the genre that you practice?
I mean, you know, I always keep it a buck. I haven't been active for a while because I decided to explore other parts of me, and so far so good. Photos, videos. I've worked on documentaries both here and elsewhere. Videos, I'm doing so many things on the side because I was like, and poetry, like Poetra said earlier on, it doesn't really pay, right? And so I had to take a pause to explore like other sides of me. And so since, like, for example, my first and last album in 2012, even though I went through shows, I've done shows here and elsewhere, so many shows. I think I haven't been active since 2017, 2018. 2018. My very last proper show was in Spain. And I'm like, I'm done. But, and Poetra made me mention, and I was so happy she mentioned it. My last major show in Ghana was with the High Commission in Ghana. I'm not going to mention them and all that. After I performed and I went back into the crowd, it took my mind back and to the slave era. For some funny reason, I don't know if I was high or like I wasn't high and I wasn't drunk, but it took my mind back to a period when I was in GSS and we took a trip to the Cape Coast Castle, and the tour guide was telling us how the black indigenous people came to perform for the white people. And they showed us this part where they would perform, they would drum and dance. It took my mind back to that period. And I'm like, yo.
What am I doing?
Yeah. So that also played a role. But like I said, I was exploring other sides. But for Poetra, I have admired her from afar, and she knows. Back then, we would trade, like, I would write something and I would send it to you, or I would spit it out to you to tell me what you think. Because for me, the English that doesn't come easy. Like, I'm not so good at English, but
But you've been speaking it.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak. I just wanted to, speak. So for our places, I think Poetra is doing amazing stuff now. Yeah, and like I said earlier on, I am about to kick it again. Thanks to folks like her. Yeah, right. Thanks. And Charlie, to be honest with you, right, in Ghana, there are a few artists when it comes to spoken word poetry that I do. One is behind the wine, one is behind the wine. Shout out to Sasawuki. I saw her perform once. I was like, hey, Charlie, are you chill small? And Charlie, Poetra, has been, doing dope shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Poetra, how do you see you guys? Because I think from a pioneering standpoint, both of you represent the generation in a very unique way that you've been doing for long enough where you can say you're a veteran.
Yeah.
And so, sorry,
Chai,
I don't mean
so-
to. I don't mean to make you guys look.
Shout out to say black too.
Yeah.
Chai.
But when I first saw you at where I saw you at, Pidgeassi, I thought you had such a presence, and I want to know what your perspective is on the place that you guys have occupied in genre, like how you see your friendship and your place in the genre.
Shouts to 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was flinching a veteran, not because of oldness, but just, I like to shy away from pioneering because I came to meet people doing the work. Like you mentioned, Sir Black is one of the most consistent. Sir Black is still performing locally, still putting on his own shows. Sir Black will announce his show like 3 days.
Well, when I say veteran, I mean particularly to our generation.
But I think that a lot of us have been consistent. And for me now, that is the most important thing because we need to stay consistent to show other people it can be done. Sometimes I grieve the lack of spaces. When I was coming up, it was the existence of a space that fostered my creativity, that fostered my interest. And I think we've lost some of it just in the poetry. But by virtue of continuing to do the work, we are still showing that this genre matters, this genre can thrive, this genre is cool, this genre can do other things, and you should. So I think that's what I see my place, that one, not only have I brought excellence into it, but I have been in the game, I have showed up consistently through it all.
Are you guys both open to, because you've mentioned where you have a space, you used to have a space to go and, what do you call it, freestyle or free, like
an open mic.
Open mic. Are you guys willing to utilize a space for that now at this point in your careers where you can foster that kind of community, not necessarily performing yourselves, but encouraging others?
I hate talking about what I'm doing or my plans, but that is part of my plan now too. I want to back spoken word. And that's the reason why from 2020 till now, like I said earlier, I was like, I hear so many poets. Anytime I'm outside the country, I go to open mics. It's my thing. Open mics every single night for like a month. I do it. And I'm like, how can I bring that here? And also, how can I help poets? Because I get tons of emails and DMs every week from an upcoming poet and all that. Listen to my project and tell me what you think all the time. So I'm like, what can I do to help? And that's why I started learning how to make beats. So for this new art form that I have been able to master, quote unquote, I want to collaborate with people like poets, especially like, this is the beat maker Mutombo, and I'm going to work on you with your next, spoken word, for French project. So I have all of these things in the pipeline, but I really, me, I really hate talking about, stuff coming up. Yeah.
And you are?
Yeah, I think that's a culture that, like I was saying, I grieve those spaces because I think spoken word or poetry is the only art form in the sound where they grow you as a performer before you even become a recording artist. Almost all poets have gone through like open mics. They've done that over and over again. So they are excellent performers. And if you're an excellent performer, it makes you an excellent recording artist. And we used to have, now it's very hard to find an open mic, poetry only.
Last question to you. You dropped a project in 2014, latter part of 2024, 2024. You dropped a project for all of us. Why should someone listen to it?
Because it's dope.
Oh, shit.
Because it's dope. I think it's one of a kind. it's a fusion of both music, singing, and poetry. But not only that, it's multi-genre as well. There are different genres on that album. And beyond that, it's also multi-genre in terms of art, because we created a world, a visual world around it. We dropped the album in 8 weeks. For every Sunday, one track was released. And how we did that is that we created a body of work around it. And now we are moving from city to city, doing exhibition for the work that was created
Here in
around
Ghana?
it. Yes.
Dope,
And
dope.
outside as well.
Okay, dope.
So you are missing out if you're not listening to it. So,
Gotcha.
The concept, what, like I think the artwork, the album artwork is different
Yeah.
and it's dope. For
Yeah.
what is the brain? What was it your idea? Was it your call?
Yeah, so it was my concept, but it was fully fleshed out by one of my collaborators called Souza. But yeah,
Shouts.
so like one of the things I've been doing for the last 5 years is that I am very interested in text. As a writer, I'm not only interested in text on the page, but also in our environment. And so I have been collecting the writings, I've been taking pictures of the text that appear. And in Ghana, we have so much richness. You go outside, Nyamebe store, God is good, on cars, in stores, etc. And I wanted to bring that into the album. So we use kind of that street text language to create the album.
Love
cover
it,
and
love
all
it,
that.
love it. Chai, before I forget, shouts to Atunwa the Guitar for powering season 6 of the podcast.
Yes, sir.
Shouts to Mark Mason and his team. You guys are, we are so elated that you came on board to do this with us for season 6. And Fred, how has this episode been? With wine.
Yeah.
And shouts to Barrel for bringing us
The wine.
And
taking you into a zone.
Chai, you guys have to check out their Instagram. I saw, the brain behind, doing a tasting and giving the history behind the bottle and everything, Charlie. And we know that our viewers are wine drinkers, so this is Charlie. You have to follow them. Yeah, you should follow them, Barrel House, Charlie, on Instagram. They have Charlie's EDB.
Yeah. I
And
see
the
the
feel.
way you want to confiscate them. But yeah, to answer your question, I've always thought that Poetra was a distinct character in our culture, in the space that I always refer to our generation because maybe selfishly so, but I really do think that we're one of the most important generations in this country
Don't worry,
today
every
because
generation thinks so.
yeah, but
So, like, claim it.
realistically, if I'm weighing their worldview and the way they act, maybe selfish. Well, I'll have this debate another time. But I think you've been a very prominent, what's the word I'm looking for? Staple. You've always been. You've existed the way that you are, and you've tried to, not tried, but I've always seen that you're there. You're not trying to, you're there.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you for that, the consistency. And yeah, I just always thought she was lovely. I love that she's maintained her dark skin and her hair is always.
And for that,
something
we have to give a round of applause.
Yeah.
Charlie. And Charlie, we thank you for coming through. We thank you for checking out the podcast. We thank you for following us. We thank you for checking out this episode in particular with Poetra Asantewa. And I'm mentioning all 3 names because if you put it in search, I'm sure tons. So many things will pop up. She's doing amazingly, dope things, different things for every tier. And Charlie, follow us everywhere. Tell your mother to tell their grandmothers, to tell their uncles to check out the podcast, the If More, Let's Divide podcast. We thank Barrel House for coming through, giving us this. Fred, can you say this? Kumusha. It's from South Africa, and I'm binging on it because it's made by a black man. so rare, right?
Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, it's dope.
With all the shit that's going on in South Africa, by the way, it's dope to see black people
Charlie.
do beautiful things.
Yeah, Charlie. So shout out to Barrel House for coming through. And Charlie, Fred.
Shout out to Poetra.
Shout out to
I've
Poetra.
always been a fan. So
Yeah, Charlie.
yeah.
It's dope. Another dope episode from your crew, Fred and Mutombo. It's the If More, Let's Divide podcast. Fred,
Booyaka!
we are through. This was dope. Very dope.